Hi, and welcome to City Desk, a behind-the-scenes look at Santa Barbara's top local news headlines. I'm your host, Jerry Roberts. Tonight, from high atop the palatial headquarters of TV Santa Barbara, we'll look at these stories. Good news for potheads, with a new step by the county to normalize stone behavior in public. A new twist in the Highway 101 saga as California Ed runs locals with a plea to Donald Trump. Some very sobering news for Santa Barbara's most outlandish drunk driving attorney. See how I did that? And a boost for Prop 47 criminal justice reforms as officials go after big bucks from the state. Joining me tonight, Kelsey Brugger, staff writer for the Santa Barbara Independent. Josh Molina of the Pacific Coast Business Times. Nick Welsh, executive editor and chief fish protectionist of the Independent. And Brooke Holland, staff reporter for Newshawk. Thank you all for being here. All right, Kelsey, you say here the Board of Supervisors meeting on recreational pot was so confusing it lasted 2.5 hours longer than planned, but it wasn't because everyone was stoned. How do you know?
That's a good question. Well, see, isn't that the essence of all of this? Drivers, how are we going to know if they're on the road?
Were you stoned? When you were covering
I wasn't.
This?
No.
Okay. All right. So what happened?
So essentially, after California voters passed Prop 64 in November, the state needs to set up a regulatory mechanism or framework sort of on the heels of what they did a couple of years ago for medical marijuana. So
And that's for 2018.
Right, and that's for January 2018. So it is confusing because you have this framework that was set up. You'll remember a couple of years ago with medical marijuana. I'm forgetting the acronym, luckily, but it was really kind of there was a mistake in there, and so all these counties and cities thought that they had to quickly rush to get their own framework set up by, like, it was a March 15th deadline, and that turned out to be an error.
We talk about here on City Desk.
So.
Check the archive.
Perfect. So anyhow, because of that confusion, I think some of that is spilled over into confusion about what's happening now. And essentially what local growers, many of them who have started to grow marijuana, are telling the Board of Supervisors, like, look, we need to be competitive. This is the best place in the state to be for ag, one of the best places in the state for ag.
So this is people who are currently growing
medical
marijuana.
Well, they are growing medical marijuana.
Wink, nudge, nudge. Okay.
Sure. Yes. And so they're saying they need authorization from their local government to show the state to get a license next January. So, they're saying we don't have a lot of time. You need to set up an ordinance, or in the very least set up a registry, because
or we're going to get frozen out.
Right. Or yeah, exactly. So what they did is they started, or they voted to establish a registry, because right now, essentially, they don't know how many growers are growing marijuana in the county.
How many do they think?
Well, they said the number could be anywhere from 300 to 1,000.
What do you think?
All I've heard is that in Carpinteria, the greenhouse space is such a premium that who is it? The Van Wingertons, they actually showed up. These are like cut flower growers. They want to get in on the action as well as the pot growers.
But the cut grower industry,
well,
the cut flower industry is
the cut flower industry, has essentially been bankrupt, and now they augment their production with some medical marijuana, and they're buying new cars. So.
And the cut flower industry is bankrupt because cut flowers are coming in from where, Josh? Colombia.
Right. Well, they estimate that 80% of flowers in the county, in the country, are coming from South America because they're so much cheaper.
And has the cut flower industry in Colombia supplanted the cocaine business? Because that would make an interesting circle.
That would be
interesting.
All right,
so here's my question. Beside the cut flower thing, which was really interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's actually the story.
That's interesting.
I'm glad to be in the last 2 paragraphs.
12 paragraphs there. That's good. Supervisor Janet Wolf, major buzzkill. Tell me about her.
Yeah. It was surprising that she is for a long time, probably considered the furthest left supervisor.
Well,
And
not with Doss Williams.
not now with Doss, perhaps, but she's definitely a strong progressive, and she was adamant. She said that in several different areas of the county that she's closely worked on, mental health issues, young, juveniles, low-cost health insurance. She has seen marijuana be problematic. I mean, she didn't say gateway drug, but it was all but.
Did you cover this hearing too? No, you weren't. Janet Wolf? What's the problem here?
She's dealing with a lot of mental health issues. She's dealing with a lot of probation issues, a lot of jail issues. So she tends to see things where problems erupt.
But the two Republicans, shall we say libertarians, were okay with it.
I think, it's a business issue. All these ag, all these farms are going to get into this business. It could be money. The county is facing a sort of a budget crisis with needing to contribute much more to its employee pension fund. So they're like, look, this might be a moneymaker for us. And they're sort of like, the voters have already spoken. There's nothing we can do.
But Andy
now.
Caldwell says, watch out for the taxation. You're a fan of Andy's, aren't you? Particularly his editorials.
Yeah, I can usually read like the first sentence online.
Well, it's all right there. All right, we'll keep an eye on it, as we say. All right, Josh, you're now at the Pacific Coast Business Times. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You've got a new gig. And your first byline is out. Moving
Not
out
out.
of the slow lane, Highway 101 widening among state's top priorities. Now, so the state is trying to go around local opposition to the Highway 101, which we've covered here a lot on City Desk. Check the archive. Tell us about that.
Well, I don't know if they're trying to go around.
Of course they are.
They're trying to get as much money as they can in multiple directions because they're going to need Measure A money. They're going to need more local money, and Trump administration has said, hey, we're going to do this $1 trillion infrastructure investment plan, and the state's trying to get some of that money. Now, one of the things that's interesting is that they're hoping that infrastructure, transportation is a bipartisan issue. So California, even though California is not high on the list of Trump's favorites, they're hoping that the administration will want to fund this, will want to give them, I think it's $280 million that they're asking for. And generally it's just kind of a wish, it's a hope. The state is sending a list, it's a list of all these different projects. They included the 101, commuter rail is on the list. They're just.
But what about the fact that many people in Montecito, such as maybe your publisher, I'm not sure, don't think this is a good idea?
Well, there's two paths. There's one that it's in court. The EIR, the comment period just ended at the end of January. City of Santa Barbara has some issues about the widening. That's part of the problem. Everyone has a different perspective, but the way that the Caltrans feels is, hey, we gotta move ahead. We gotta get the money. We've got to do whatever we can to try to fund this Highway 101 widening project. Now, the reality,
So this is a wish list, which may or may not.
it's not going to happen. Trump doesn't know what he's proposing. I mean, it's just he wants private investment.
Yeah, doesn't he want like all his $1 billion infrastructure? Isn't that
Trillion.
toll roads? I mean,
Yeah, so
I
he
mean-
wants rich people to invest into infrastructure, which essentially means toll roads. I mean, we're not going to have a toll road here in Carpinteria. That's just
the HOV tolling.
yeah.
That would be very successful.
Is that false news, though?
Is it a lie?
Is it a lie? Is it
It's a
fake?
lie.
is what a lie.
Any of it.
No, it's not a lie. But Trump has proposed this. It has not been vetted. Everyone knows this. He's just throwing it out.
So
there.
why
And so
are
are
they?
they. And so are they. I mean, everybody wants to say, hey, I'm on the list already. Because when if and when the money does materialize, they can say, see, I'm third on the list. I get the table first.
And where is SB CAG on this, Josh?
SBCAG is made up of cities from around the county, the Santa Barbara County, and they support it, right? They said, hey, yeah, Highway 101 is the most important regional project here. We need to widen it, and we need to do a whole bunch of things. Add commuter rail, get people out of their cars, get people to take the bus, the commuter bus to alleviate traffic.
But you know what? We have automated cars. We're not going to need to widen the freeway. It's all going to be gone.
Yes, and City of Santa Barbara cares more about the Olive Mill roundabout than they do.
Well,
what's
yeah,
gonna
Mayor
happen.
Helene Schneider does not like this project.
No, and it probably was one of the reasons why she's going to be Mayor Helene Schneider only for a few more months.
And not representative.
Okay, as her unpaid,
Everybody
unappointed
knows. You know
shill.
that
That,
Let me
that's
just
not
tell you
why-
what-
oh, there's
let me
Nick
just
is
say,
widely known
it's like
shill for
everybody on the city council gave the Caltrans EIR a big kick between the legs. It was Paul Casey, the city administrator. It was Rob Dayton, the traffic engineer. The vote was unanimous. It was it was really the most critical response in environmental review I've ever seen.
and upheld in court.
And
Well,
How
it said
often
that
do
that was a
those-
legitimate issue.
Well, just a very small part of it, which is the impact on city intersections, which
Which is
will be
gonna be
resolved.
hell. It's going to be a pain. It's going to be a pain.
Well, it's already hell on the freeway, according to everyone else
Yes.
outside of Santa Barbara.
How are you finding local roads these days?
I think it's better than LA. I used to live in LA,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was intense.
How many miles is this? 10.3.
10.3 miles. Yes. So that's what's happening. But it is interesting that it is on the list, that the Governor Jerry Brown included on the list, and it's going to go out there and probably get rejected because I don't think Trump's a big fan of California.
Although they approved the money for the Oroville Dam, the disaster at the Oroville Dam, which surprised me. And the reason that he said that they did that was because of his infrastructure program. It was one of the few times he actually had a coherent idea about anything.
And that's
Where
what Caltrans and others are counting on, that this infrastructure issue will be the one that he's sort of even-handed on, and California could benefit.
All right, Nick. Bad week for
Daryl Wayne
well,
Jennings.
for white males in Santa Barbara, bad behavior. A number of them, but let's start with Daryl Jennings.
We got Daryl Jennings. We got Dario Pini. We got the double D's. Daryl Jennings, everybody's favorite DUI attorney in town. He is sort of notoriously in your face, ill-tempered. He's like the id monster unleashed. Says things in court, says things out of court about judges, about prosecutors.
He doesn't like you all that much either, does he?
And we go back and forth. We have a
That's not what he told me.
We have
but
a
anyway, go ahead.
complicated
Go
relationship.
ahead.
Anyway, he was sentenced to 24 months behind bars by a federal judge this week for willfully failing to remember to pay about $670,000 in taxes. Daryl estimates when the penalties and interest is tagged on, he's going to owe the IRS something like $1.5 million.
Now he's a smart fellow.
He is smart.
So why did he not pay his taxes?
Well, he said, let me explain that. He said, I take full responsibility. I made a mistake. But people are going to say, why did a smart guy like you forget to pay your taxes?
He blamed his accountant.
Well, first he blamed his gambling addiction.
he
And
has a gambling.
and he has a serious
Did
gambling.
we know that before?
We've heard rumors before, but if you lose $166,000 in a weekend, when your wife and kids are off in Hawaii and you go off to Las Vegas, and you lose 166 grand, and you wind up losing your house to ranch getaway pad as a result, you have a serious gambling addiction.
What game did he play?
I don't know.
Okay,
That's a really good
that's a
question.
key question.
That is the question. I didn't
That's
ask.
like, what did they have for breakfast, Nick? Come on.
I just didn't get around to it.
All right, so Daryl's going off to Stony Lonesome for 24 months.
And so he'll spend about 85% of that behind bars.
And what do drunk drivers do in the meantime?
Well, if you listen to Daryl, you still call up his office because his corporate, he's going to lose his law license, at least for a while. But he still has his corporation. He's got attorneys working there. And he says, if you still want to get, I'm still the top ranked DUI attorney in town. And if you want to get the second best or the third best, go find him. But I'm still offering the best.
Now, is this a case where Daryl's behavior in the past and his obnoxiousness caught up with him, or does that have nothing to do with it?
I think it probably has everything to do with it. I think the fact that Daryl makes it almost impossible not to hate him at times. It definitely comes back. I mean, he's somewhat convinced that the fact that one of the prosecutors he's tangled with is a former IRS agent might have something to do
Who's
with
that?
it. Sandy Horowitz. And definitely Sandy Horowitz and Daryl in court, it was actually really awkward. I mean, they would get into it, and it was like junior high school. So no, Daryl does not believe in catching more flies with honey. He'd rather like throw. Like,
He's a Trump-like figure, would you say?
he is extremely Trump-like. I didn't want to go there because everything, all roads lead to Trump. But he is so Trump-like, it's ridiculous.
Now, there's probably a lot of multimillionaire tax evaders. How did this guy get turned in, or how did this come to?
You know, if you don't file taxes, I mean, obviously
That's a clue.
that's kind of a clue. Or if you say, "Oh, by the way, can I have an extension and I'll pay you," and then you don't pay, and then you do the next thing, the
So
same
it was
thing.
organically. It was the IRS. It wasn't somebody squealing on him.
I'm sure somebody squealed on him. I don't know. I mean, Daryl is convinced it because he is so unpopular and he takes it to the man. I mean, the problem with Daryl is this. Every town does need a crusading attorney that does take it to the man, who isn't just about making nice and representing his client, but is sort of a flag waver. We don't have that. We have Daryl Jennis, and he steps over his own toes. It's anyway.
All right. Speaking of people whose bad behavior caught up with them, Dario Pini had a tough week as well.
Dario Pini is having a very hard time. Ariel Kalan on one day posted 3,200 notices of violation.
And who is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, you don't know who Ariel?
No, I do, but
He is the
on TV, so you don't want to assume too
me and
much
Ariel. Yeah,
information.
city attorney Ariel Kalan.
Sort of like SBK.
SBK. Ariel Kalan, city attorney, 3,200 notices of violations for 13 rental properties.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. 2 days later, he says, "Oh, do I have your attention? Oh, I forgot to mention. Here's an $8.1 million lawsuit. And by the way, we're going to put all of your properties in receivership." Now, receivership, I have been told, is kind of a vague sort of word. What receivership means is I am going to take all the properties you own, and I'm going to collect the rents that used to go into your pocket. They're now going into the receiver's pocket. And, oh yeah, that receiver can then take out loans that you're going to have to pay back to get the money to fix up the rat trap apartments that you should have been fixing
And how
up.
much of this is because the apartments were in bad shape, and how much because he's been difficult to deal with?
That's a really good question. I don't really know the answer. I think his apartments are a mess. I think there is a pathological history there. If you go back to the 90s, the city was putting him in jail at the same time. And if you looked at the complaints about his properties then, it's almost identical word for word to what they are now. Dario rents out to poor people. He rents out to immigrants. He rents out to large families. He doesn't really pay attention and doesn't really care if their relatives then move in with him. He rents out the living room. He rents out the dining room.
So what's going to happen to the tenants now?
That's actually a really big question. I think this is going to take a long time to play out. So they're going to be still going to Dario. Dario's not going away.
So he's going to continue operating? No, I think he's going to have a receiver, right?
Well, this is a legal process which is going to be
I see.
long and long. And
So
long.
he needs a good lawyer,
He's got a bunch
but
of
it can't
lawyers.
be Daryl Jones.
It will not be Daryl Jennis. I don't think Dario has a drinking issue. I don't think that's his issue.
All right, let me ask you one real quickly. Another Santa Barbara and who didn't have a good week? Andy Pudzer.
Another white guy.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Another
Started
unhappy
it.
middle-aged.
I didn't say a word, did I? Oh, I did.
At the
Never
beginning,
mind.
Anyway, Andy Putzer used to be the
Patriarch.
the CEO of CKE. You know, he ran Hardee's, he ran Carl's Jr., and he was the Trump nominee for Secretary of Labor. He is the only Trump nominee to bite the dust before he got to the hearing. Everybody else looks like they're going to make it. He got shot down because he hired an illegal nanny. He was not sufficiently tight and harsh when it came to immigrants.
His wife.
But he was, and then the fact that Oprah Winfrey went public with or she didn't, but it got public with a 1990 interview of his first wife, who was on Oprah's show in disguise, talking about how he used to beat the crap out of her, but knew how not to leave marks. And that did not help.
So he's a bad person also.
He's a
According to
hard
what you've written,
I'm sure he's a fabulous
I think you
person.
helped bring him down.
I don't think
I
that
think
was
you
me.
did.
It was all me.
I
I'll
think
take that
a
one.
lot of it. Don't you agree?
I believe that the Trump administration may have tapped her phone and said,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fake news. Speaking of fake news, no, just kidding. All right, Brooke. So we have Proposition 47, which was passed in 2014.
Yes.
You'll remember that was the last time the Giants won the World Series, Josh. And-
yes, the final time.
And the Dodgers were winning. Okay, what is Prop 47 and how does that apply to mental illness and alternative programs?
Yeah. So Prop 47 reclassifies a range of felonies as misdemeanors. So property crimes and nonviolent drug offenses. And within Prop 47, a portion of funds can go towards the county to utilize it for a system or some sort of programs to help those with mental health issues or substance abuse and sort of guide them through programs and pathways. So Santa Barbara County is going for a $3 million grant
From the state.
from the state, which is within 38 months. And 40 people could fall underneath
According
that.
to Newshawk.
40 or 48?
No, 40 individuals.
40 individuals. And within that, they want to provide 14 with housing
So it's a housing program.
for 14. But what was brought up was how are they going to classify that? What type of people are going to be able to have those?
Is
the
this at an
housing?
early stage?
Well, the deadline is February 21st.
So it shouldn't be at an early stage, but it is.
Yes, but when a room full of people heard it, they were kind of surprised as to what is going on, and they had a proposed plan, but they weren't ready to show it.
February when?
21st, next year.
That's like next week.
Yeah, next week
That's
is
next
when
week.
the deadline is for it.
So are they going to have it done?
Gonna ask them if they do.
So here's
Is
the
this like
idea.
the HOV lane? Is this like the HOV lane?
So here's
Coming
so Prop 47 was supposed to reduce felonies to misdemeanors and therefore save money
Yeah,
in
and then those
incarceration. And they have a bunch of money in Sacramento that they're now sitting on that we're applying for.
Yes, that they want to use for systems and programs to help mental health or those with substance
And is there a
abuse.
direct line? In other words, with the 40 individuals or 14 who are receiving housing, would they otherwise be incarcerated?
Currently?
Wherever.
Well, I don't believe that it made any promises within the proposition, and I don't. The nonviolent drug offenders, I believe they could be released from state prison
All right.
after. Yeah.
Would you agree with me, Kelsey, and I know you would, that this shows a level of dysfunction in this county department that they have not prepared this by now?
Well, what they'll tell you is that they have been meeting as a Prop 47 task force for 2 years since,
Yeah.
They said they were the 18.
since this passed, it was something that went into effect the next day. So it was a big, oh my God, what are we going to do? So they've all been meeting. I think it's probably a group of people who don't really agree about the impacts of Prop 47. And so now that they have, they've drafted this proposal, and a lot of people in the mental health community feel like they were just checking a box, like, well, make sure you get public input before you send this thing in.
Oh,
and so
for
they
this
did
hearing.
so.
Do
Right.
the soups have to sign off on this?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I mean, it's not. I don't know. It's not on
I
the
don't-
agenda.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean,
I think the
Tuesday.
CEO's office is sending it.
It probably didn't
Yeah.
help that that department was the subject of a statewide audit recently. It was sort of every 5 years, they sort of check out the underwear drawer of, it's now behavioral wellness.
Excuse me. The underwear. Oh, I see. Okay,
And
that's a
they-
metaphor.
they do
It's a metaphor.
Yeah, a metaphor. It's,
Like,
no, and I think that department was in serious meltdown mode several years ago, which is the reason why these audits take place. And I have a hunch that definitely distracted some focus and attention that could otherwise have been to having a report ready so that somebody could actually read what the proposal was. That's kind of striking.
Yeah, that seems to be something that you'd want to get together before you had a public hearing.
yeah, it was just a lot of talk.
So who was at the hearing? Oh, in terms of the public, was it people who would receive this?
There's interested people who
Yeah.
want to join the committee that they're trying to form.
But-
the advisory.
but-
Or
Like,
there was
like-
some from the rape center, I believe.
yeah, advocates with
Yeah.
various nonprofits and mental health advocates.
But what did Deidre Edgar say?
Well, Deidre Edgar, who's a public defender, deputy public defender, was sitting in the back, and she sort of railed on the idea that $3 million for 40 people. It's like that translates to $75,000 a person, and how are you going to be able to say if that's helping the overall Prop 47 population if your sample size is 40 people?
This sounds like a major mess.
40
Right.
adults, yeah.
All right, I'll look forward to some investigative reporting on this, if not fake news. All right, well, that takes all of our time once again. So thank you all for watching, and thanks to our crew, Oscar, Phil, Katie, Orchid, Estefania, Anthony, and of course, our senior executive, high-ranking sheriff, producer, Hap Freund. And we will see you next time. If you have comments or questions about City Desk or a suggestion for a topic, please check us out on SB City Desk on Facebook or send a Gmail. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Good night.